So this year we saw the launch of the first year of the Fly as a competition. First of all, what was the purpose behind creating the event? Why did you choose to create the Fly?
Yes, so it was essentially something that came out of lockdown when we had a time away from actually doing lacrosse. We had an opportunity to assess what we were offering and where kind of the gaps were, and we identified that there's a gap kind of in the National League competition structure, something that filled a space between the club competitions and regional leagues, and then looking at the national teams, so filling in a space there essentially. And that kind of brought us to the concept of this National League. We spent quite a bit of time doing a bit of research, talking to other sports that run national leagues as well, such as netball and their Super League. We've spoken to badminton, and we spoke to a couple of other stakeholders, did quite a bit of research, and essentially created this idea, which we then kind of took forward to produce the Fly.
So why sixes? Why did you choose to take sixes to be the version played for this National League, the Fly?
So sixes is such a good opportunity that's coming around the corner, that's come down from World Lacrosse and the development and the aspirations that they've got for the sixes format. Obviously we're looking at Olympic aspirations ultimately, but precursors to that we've got the World Games next year is going to be sixes lacrosse. We're potentially looking at Commonwealth Games. So it's a really exciting format of the sport, and the Fly provides that kind of performance competitive environment for the sixes format, and ultimately it's fast, it's fun, and it's exciting, and it's just something that people I think will really enjoy watching.
And as well, there is almost no competition out there for players to play the sixes before this came around. So it's sort of, did you see it as being that thing to give top athletes a chance to play the sport first and foremost?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the timing has just been so good to bring in a competition of this level and the performance that we're trying to achieve, and just being able to use the sixes format is just such a unique opportunity in that it's coming out and it's so new. It's not been played before. The Fly this year was the first elite performance competitive sixes lacrosse in the world. All the others had all been exhibition games, so it was really exciting to be able to get that up and off the ground, using the sixes format, which has just got so much potential in it.
And with a format that almost seeks to unify the rules between men's and women's lacrosse, was that an opportunity here to bring both the men's and women's side together in one competition?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really big thing for us, is to make sure that we've got the men's and the women's side by side, equal opportunities and equal profile for both formats of the game.
And how does the Fly fit into sort of wider strategies for the game? I know you've done a lot of work over the last couple of years in developing not just the Fly but a strategy for sixes overall.
Yeah, so we developed the Playground to Podium strategy, which is essentially looking at how we can implement and integrate the sixes format to the lacrosse landscape in England. It's essentially creating just a new pathway, participation pathway from what is effectively our primary school offer at Pop Lacrosse, going all the way through to colleges, universities, and now we've got the top end at the Fly using the sixes format, which is hopefully going on to Olympics. So the Fly sits in a wider piece of work where it's the top end of the pathway that we're trying to achieve with the whole of the sixes format, and along the way looking at how it can complement the tens and the field game as we're going along.
So as we've come to the end of the first year of competition, what were some of the objectives that you set along the way for this first year of getting it off the ground, particularly in a sort of really difficult environment that we've had over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly there was quite a lot of uncertainty when we were planning it as to whether we were actually going to be able to run anything, so that was quite challenging to deal with. But I mean, for us, the priority number one was just get it off the ground. We spent quite a lot of time working with the design agency around the name and the brand, so that was really, really positive to actually create something so bold and fresh. So that was really good that we managed to get the brand developed. The next one for us really was, because the format is so new, and like I said, it's the first time it had been used in a competitive environment in the world, it was really a good opportunity for us to test and learn test everything and learn the rules. So that's athletes learning the rules, it's officials learning, it's coaches all learning the rules. How can we how does it work in practice, essentially, in a competitive environment? So it really was just an opportunity to have a go testing and have a bit of fun, because it was the first competitive lacrosse that we'd had for 12, 18 months or something. So that was really our objectives for the first year, is create something that's going to have the foundations of longevity that we want to achieve, all of our aspirations for the project as a whole, but ultimately just to get the athletes out there and having some fun and learning.
And because of the situation, obviously the decision was taken to remove that element of spectators from the event, but instead did that allow you to give real focus and attention to the athlete and coach development in that first year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things for me with the Fly is that it's all about the athletes. We're trying to put them at the centre of everything that we're doing. We're trying to create an environment around them that best prepares them to perform on the world stage. So we're not expecting them to be performing at their peak at this event. This is an opportunity for them to learn and develop in a performance environment to then take to the World Games or the Olympics or the World Championship with their tens. We want to develop the athletes as individuals. And similarly with the coaches, we're looking to develop our coaches so that it's an opportunity for them to test tactics, to try new things. We're looking to get coach developers in to work with the coaches so that from external sports, so they can get an understanding and learning from other sports, broaden their kind of mindsets, as it were. So it's a really good opportunity, and like you say, taking the spectators away really just allowed us to hone in on what we wanted to do in terms of development around the athletes and the coaches and the officials as well.
But now for 2022, I assume the aspiration is to bring in that spectating element. The way the sport's been created is that it should be great for people to watch. So is that something that is sort of central to your expansion of the league for next year?
Yeah, I think the sixes, it's just brilliant. It's so fast, it's so much fun to watch, and I think it'd be great to get spectators in there. We've set a really good kind of base level foundations in terms of what we want to achieve with the Fly. I think setting out the standards and the professionalism and the expectations that we have from the athletes, but also what they can expect from us in terms of what we're going to give them in support. It just means that when spectators are added in, they're just going to have such a good time watching the athletes perform.
For 2022 and the sort of years coming, because of no lacrosse in the last 2 years, there's lots of lacrosse to watch. There's lots of lacrosse for the athletes to sort of participate in, and I suppose it's the sport's at a really interesting point about where athletes compete and sort of where they set themselves up. And I suppose the Fly gives another option and sort of opens up routes for more players to have more experiences with the game, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're coming into what is going to be one of the most congested international calendars that we've had in probably ever. And we're still a relatively small sport, and athletes are being pulled in a lot of different directions. And we understand that, and we're not expecting all athletes to be available to play every year at the Fly, because there's other priorities. There's the tens, there's World Championship cycles that they need to take into consideration. So year on year, it might be that the Fly has a slightly different focus, slightly different athletes that are available. It's potentially time that some athletes might find that they want to focus more on sixes than tens, or they might decide that they want to focus more on tens than sixes, because we're getting to a point where there's probably going to have to be decisions that are made around that, because we can't expect our athletes to be able to do everything.
What are your sort of future aspirations for the league? Where do you see the Fly being in sort of 5 years' time?
So I don't know about 5 years' time, but for me, I've personally got really big ambitions for the league. I want this to be the first professional lacrosse league outside of the States. I want us to get to the point where we are paying athletes to participate in it. Whether that's 5 years down the line or maybe a little bit further, 10 years, there's a lot of work that's going to go into achieving that. But yeah, I think we're setting the foundations there. We're creating the brands. We're creating the identities. We're setting the standards. And yeah, ultimately that's where I want to get. I want to get to the point where we have athletes that are being paid to play in the league.